I bought this apartment to renovate and sell it. It had this ugly, nasty, smelly, gross kitchen, and this video is about how I changed it. If you want to see the demolition, it's linked in the place links go. This is all about the rebuild. 32 3/16. Can we do this? Well, that's close enough. I know that I've got a cabinet that's 47 wide, and then my stove, which is about 30, and then another cabinet that's 30 wide. So we're gonna start with marking out 47 first to the end of one cabinet, and we'll mark that below my laser. And then we'll go for another 30. So this space is the stove, and then we'll do another 30 to here. This is important when you're dealing with a stove section of a wall because you don't want the rails showing in behind your stove. You could do it if you wanted to be lazy, but it's not very good looking. Now that I know where the first cabinet ends, I need to find the studs so that I can align the holes in the rail to where the studs are. You would ideally want the rail to go right up close to the wall, but if my stud ends up here, I don't have anything I can attach to, so I might have to trim a little bit down off the end to get it to line up to the studs. And you need to do that before you cut the rail because you don't know how much of the end of the rail that you might need to cut off. When I'm marking my studs, I always make sure that I mark above the laser line so that when I hold my rail up, I don't have to be trying to shuffle it back and forth trying to find it if they were below the laser. But it looks like we don't really have to cut anything off the end of this, so we can just put a mark. We'll come back a little bit extra. I try to keep a digital version of my kitchen plans available because sometimes the printed version just doesn't have all the details I want. If you're going to build yourself a kitchen, you're going to save a lot of money, so spend some of that money on new tools. I like to use an angle grinder to cut these rails because while you can do it with a handsaw, this took me only 26 seconds and it made neat looking sparks. That's to the bottom of the rails, 32 3. So these go up above, be something about like this. First piece of the kitchen going in. Oh man, we're doing it. We're building a kitchen. This is it. This is the thing. Moose and Twitch chat, 100 years. Sometimes I have to wrangle this in ways I don't like. We'll see what we can do about just manhandling it. All right, manhandle success. When your walls aren't straight, which yours definitely won't be, you'll need to shim your rails so that they are straight. If you try to install on curved walls, you're gonna have a bad day. IKEA's system using rails makes installing the uppers first a lot easier because you don't have to reach over the base cabinets. I started with the upper corner cabinet because it's the only one that cannot move. At either end of both walls are filler pieces or side panels, so the end of those cabinets can move. I have a dedicated video on how to assemble cabinets quickly linked here, so I won't go into too much depth on this one. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments or on the Discord. This is how I get the first cabinet on the wall. It's pretty straightforward. This is how it looks installing it from POV, and installing a tall one from POV. Starting again in the corner for the same reasons as before, I check plumb on both faces. That's acceptable. That's basically perfect. Good job, corner unit. That makes my day. That makes my whole day right there. That means I can base other things off of that and it'll be good enough. So my day is starting out great. How's everyone else's day going? Then I got the rail locking clips installed. There we go, that's locked in. I really cannot overstate how excellent it is that this started just plumb. And I would like to bring this out at the front a little bit to get it to match a little better. I have a cheat for this. Actually, we're gonna get one screw in here first. And then we can loosen up here and use that to pull it out just a little bit. There we go. Now we can screw this back in. Come on. There. Get the second one up here. All right, so I wanted to get those together so I could get accurate measurements for this off of the bottom and off of the side. We're gonna go 11.5. I kind of want to show some of the faceplate. 11.5 to 14. So we're gonna poke some small holes on the back side with some small bits about in the corner, and then we're gonna flip it over and cut from the inside with a jigsaw, because that will hopefully take better care of the edges. So did we get it right, or did we completely screw it up? Place your bets. If I got it right, global warming isn't real. Well, there you go. That's proof positive. Global warming isn't actually a thing. That's just science. I don't rely solely on the screws between the cabinets to keep the cabinets plumb. I also put shims in when needed. They get tacked in with my 23 gauge pin nailer. So now we can do something kind of like that, and then we can do something like this. So that's why you stand off to the side when you're cutting something thin like that, because they can like to spit. You also didn't comment on my sprayed doors.
They're sprayed doors.
They are sprayed. I didn't sand between, so they're not the best job, but they are clearly sprayed and not rolled.
You could have sanded this a little nicer.
I could have sanded all of that, and I just didn't care. That's passable. That'll get cocked and that'll do. To make sure there are no visible gaps between the crown and the cabinet, they provide this foam sticky strip to put in between. When it comes to crown molding, especially with this stuff, there's no right way to do it. You might want yours set at a different depth than I want mine. I chose this clip to give you an idea about how I made my decision here. I wanted the reveal of the crown over the doors to match that of the reveal of the crown over the side panel. Then I set my little square to that reveal and used it to space over the doors. Everything else ended up being just a little bit of trial and error. And if we have to cheese it that little bit, and it's a literal hair off of perfect, I'm okay with that. I didn't start installing the first base cabinet until pretty much everything for the uppers was finished. Doors, shelves, crown, just about everything. It's so much easier to work up there when you don't have to lean over other cabinets. Handles got left till later though, when I could do them all at once, which would let me only have to set up the handle jig just the one time. So I don't actually care about plumb here. What I care about here is getting this to line up with this. And I think that'll do. Oh, the best part of IKEA cabinets is their adjustable feet. Ta-da! There we go, ready for the reveal. Mostly finished kitchen. It'll help a little bit better if I don't put it over the hole I need to drill. Now we drill all the right side doors, and then we flip it around and drill the back for the left side doors. This one individual bit has drilled every hole for every cabinet that I've ever installed, including the filing cabinet that I built. And it's still basically as sharp as the day I bought it. Let's install one and see how ugly it is before I go and ruin all of them in case the position is wrong. Like, I could still afford to replace 2 doors and just be like, oopsie, too bad, oh well. But I do not want to replace all the doors on the whole kitchen, so we're gonna get at least one handle installed and then we'll continue. Are you not offended? I think that's passable. To establish correct spacing and give enough support for the upper corner of the side panel of the dishwasher, I got a piece of pine board and put some pocket hole screws into it. They didn't really catch the side panel as well as I'd like, but it was better than nothing. Drill a hole. I don't think that's going anywhere. That sank down nice. Since the floors were concrete and the side panels very thin, I had to cut the ends off some of the screws before I could use them. Just have to make sure I don't go all the way through. That's pretty stable. I could show you all the steps I took to fabricate my countertops, but I already have several videos about that linked below. Also, basically, no one is realistically going to do this, so just know that at some point you'll be calling someone in to make you some countertops. Installing a microwave is just a matter of following the instructions. I had to bring mine out a little bit from the wall, but a couple of 2x4s worked for that. Every microwave I've ever installed comes with a traceable diagram on or in the box, so be sure you use it. They'll show mounting points for the wall as well as where to drill holes in the cabinet above. It took me 8 minutes to get this installed by myself. It would go a lot faster with 2 people, and if I had been slightly more prepared. Here's another thing you probably won't be doing: cutting your own faucet hole in your countertop. One of these days, I promise I'll do a proper sink drain tutorial, but for now, use a P-trap, make sure it's vented, and try to slope it towards the drain. Do all of that and you'll be pretty set. I attached only the cold water line so I could run water and test the drain. The hot side stayed off because I still needed to attach the dishwasher. I like to make sure that I've checked the power before hardwiring appliances. Here I'm taping down my electrical line and my water line so that I can move the dishwasher without them getting in the way. If anyone knows of a better way to move a dishwasher, hit me up in the comments. I always find it really awkward. I'm only just now realizing how big a gap is above the dishwasher. This is caused by the slope of the floor away from the fridge and stove wall. I had to check and make sure that I didn't somehow get some kind of special Hobbit dishwasher. I couldn't address that height just with the dishwasher feet alone, so I got some leftover trim and I put that in underneath. Then I could do my fine adjustments with the dishwasher feet. Wiring a dishwasher is super easy, just make sure the colors of the wires match when you connect them. All that's left is to check it for level and secure it to the cabinets. Because of the slope of the floor, I had to make my own custom toe kicks out of some MDF. Not difficult, just a little annoying. Well, it's a little long, but I also don't care because it fits good. And that fits good too. So our 3 pieces are cut. Yay! So I've got to get these things basically perfectly aligned so that this inside edge, which is not this inside edge, to line up exactly with this line. There's nothing too special about these measurements or the math I'm doing. The only thing I'll point out is that I used a square to mark the position of the cabinet feet on the toe kick. Then I would know exactly where the clips needed to go. I used 2 small leftover cabinet screws for each. Well, that works. Since everything brown is always ugly, never you mind the floors. Does anyone make toe kicks out of floor material? Probably a bad idea. Anyway, these toe kicks had to get primed and painted. After the priming and before the painting, I took the time to install the dishwasher water line. I used a 3/8 compression T for this. IKEA. Let's start the turbo mode. Oh, there we go, 1 hour. You take off the extra dry and night dry. It goes. That looks better. It doesn't line up perfectly in the corner, and I don't care. I pin nailed a small ledger board to bridge the gap behind the stove so I'd be able to tile across it. And then before we get going, we're going to do a little bit of layout work. I built my layout for the tiles based on the sink area because that's where you'll see the most vertical surface and likely where you'll spend the most time. So this bucket is 0.63 kilograms. I want to know how many liters per kilogram. Because what we do is we pour some thinset in and then we figure out how much water we need, and then we weigh the water with my fish scale and we just get that many liters, and it's easier that way. 0.33 liters per kilogram. This is one of those times where I absolutely will work in metric because the math is so easy. The instructions tell you how much water you should use for the whole bag, so I just divide the amount of water by the amount of material. Then I weigh the amount of thinset I've got and multiply that by my liters per kilogram. That tells me how many liters I need. And because 1 liter is 1 kilogram, I don't have to measure the water with a cup like you would if you were using quarts in imperial. I just use the same scale to weigh the water. Not the right paddle for this, but it's what we've got, and we're only doing a little bit at a time, so we should be okay. Yay, mixing the thinset. This is always the most fun part, where you get to do it and then wait and then do it again. saw is so good. This is how I cut tile out for around electrical boxes. One cut at either end and then take out all the bits in between. I keep the tile lifted because of the curve of the blade. I want that cut to be as flat as possible. Okay, I've been avoiding dealing with this, but we have to deal with this now. This whole right corner under this right side of the cabinet, we want to have this line up right with the edge of the counter. So we're going to try to right on the edge there, and we'll have to grab a level, but we'll sit that there for now. So we want to be fairly fussy about the cuts that come to the end of this. We're going to try to get the first at least 2 cut. All right, we got 2 pieces cut perfect. Bonk. I had to add some extra thinset where the tile trim was to build out the back a little more due to the angle. And that'll get grouted and be okay. This one can get tucked up in behind after we clean it. The only issue I'm going to have is we have some shims over here that we're gonna have to cut a little bit around. You see what I mean? Like, that's just ugly and there's nothing I could do about it. So a little bit of a valence piece trim along there would be okay. But I actually don't mind it being in behind there. I kinda actually really like that. There it is. All right, one more under the microwave. There's a bird outside my window. And then I was done tiling. I'm grouting with Fusion Pro single component grout. It comes in a bunch of colors and is a very easy application. You put it on, then wipe off the extra with a sponge. It comes pre-mixed, and unlike every other pre-mixed anything, especially like drywall, it's actually ready to go right in the bucket. It also dries very quickly, so I do it in relatively small sections. I didn't have to do this now, but I could, so I did. I just removed the ledger under the tile. There's the kitchen mostly finished, and I get to spend some time getting all of this stuff out. It's all right, you know? I'll accept it. Finally, I had to get the switches and outlets in. Consider getting some spare, longer screws to attach the device over your tiles. I picked up a pile of 1.5" screws just for this. If you cut your tiles carefully and properly, the ears of the device will land on the tiles, and you shouldn't have to worry about putting any spacers in behind. You can always shorten longer screws. Both the device to box screws and the cover plate screws are 8/32 size, so you can use your wire strippers to shorten them. Just thread them into your strippers and squeeze. Make sure you run the screw in and out of the threads on the strippers a few times before fully removing it. This helps repair the threads that were damaged when it got cut, making it easier to thread into your box. Doing this for the cover plate screws can save you digging an indent out from your tiles. The very last thing to do was get a piece of trim in where the 2 tiles couldn't be slid up in behind the cabinet over the sink. I used my very fancy, very YouTuber-y Japanese pull saw for this, because I didn't want to go and haul the 70-pound miter saw back up from the trailer. I glued this into place and caulked around it. With that, the kitchen is totally finished. Here's a reminder of what we started with. It was mostly functional, but really greasy, smelly, and ugly. Nothing of this original kitchen was kept. Here's the final, really final last version .mp4 reveal. Come out here and you're greeted with the grand open space with the magnificent new kitchen. And if you buy this place, you can even set the time correctly, because that is not the correct time. But we have a new dishwasher. We ran it, it works. We have a new oven. We didn't run it yet. And we have a new fridge and a new microwave. It'll get wiped down. There's a little bit of that there. So I got to work on my befores and afters. That's a problem for Future Moose, and he's a real big jerk. That little tour video went up in the corner because the Canon R6 has zero stabilization and it was really shaky. I hope you liked this video. If you have any comments or questions, put them in the comments or questions area or in the Discord.